The great hall echoes with laughter as King Mpande Kusanzanga Kona raises his ceremonial cup, surrounded by those he loves most. His half-brothers stand beside him, their faces wearing masks of celebration. His sons gather close, their eyes reflecting the firelight and something darker. This is the scene of perfect royal unity. Family bound by blood, united by shared legacy, strengthened by mutual loyalty. The king who has weathered external storms now basks in the warmth of kinship, believing himself safe in the embrace of his own bloodline. But beneath the surface of this familial harmony, poison courses through royal veins. Not the kind that kills with a single drop, but the slow-acting venom of ambition, jealousy, and the terrible mathematics of succession. Tonight, as Mpande celebrates another year of successful rule, he cannot see the calculations flickering behind familiar eyes. Which brother deserves the throne more? Which son shows greater promise? Which family member has grown tired of bowing to a king they believe themselves capable of replacing? The tragedy of royal blood is its double nature. The same genetic legacy that legitimizes rule also legitimizes rebellion. The family that elevates kings to power can just as easily drag them to their graves. Because in the brutal world of dynastic politics, blood doesn't just run thicker than water, sometimes it runs red with betrayal, spilled by the very hands that share its heritage. The grave is already being dug. The gravediggers wear the king's own face. To understand the magnitude of this coming betrayal, you must first witness the kingdom at its zenith, a realm that seems unshakable, ruled by a king whose wisdom has brought unprecedented prosperity. Under Mpande's reign, the Zulu nation has found the balance that eluded his predecessors. Where Shaka ruled through terror and Dingaan through paranoia, Mpande governs with a steadier hand. The kingdom expands not through constant warfare, but through strategic alliances and careful diplomacy. The royal kraals overflow with cattle, the traditional measure of wealth and power. Trade routes stretch from the interior to the coast, bringing exotic goods and foreign knowledge. The military remains formidable, but no longer consumes the kingdom's resources in endless campaigns. Most importantly, Mpande has brought stability to the royal succession, or so it appears. Unlike the chaotic transitions that marked previous reigns, this king has multiple sons reaching maturity, ensuring continuity of the royal line. The dynasty seems more secure than ever. But this very success plants the seeds of destruction. A thriving kingdom attracts ambitious eyes. Multiple heirs create multiple possibilities. Prosperity gives royal relatives time to contemplate what they might do differently, better, more grandly. The court buzzes with activity that seems healthy but carries dangerous undercurrents. Princes host their own councils, ostensibly to learn governance, but actually to build personal loyalty networks. Royal brothers maintain their own military units, officially for kingdom defense, but potentially for more personal purposes. Beneath the golden surface of this peaceful reign, the forces that destroy dynasties from within gather strength. Success breeds complacency, stability creates opportunity, and family bonds begin to fray under the weight of shared ambition. At the center of this brewing storm sits King Mpande, a ruler whose greatest strength may prove to be his fatal weakness, trust in the bonds of blood. Unlike his predecessors, Mpande rules through inclusion rather than isolation. He elevates family members to positions of authority, believing that shared power strengthens the throne rather than threatening it. His brothers serve as trusted advisors. His sons command military regiments. His nephews manage important territories. This approach has brought the kingdom peace and prosperity, but it has also created something unprecedented in Zulu royal history, a large pool of potential successors with both legitimate claims and real power bases. Prince Seswio stands as the acknowledged heir apparent, tall, charismatic, and militarily gifted like his grandfather Shaka. His supporters see a future king who could restore Zulu martial glory. But his very prominence makes him a target for other ambitious relatives who question whether, Primogeniture should determine succession. Prince Buyazi emerges as Sesueo's primary rival, blessed with diplomatic skills that complement his brother's military prowess. Their mother, Queen Nkombazi, works tirelessly to advance his claim, arguing that wisdom should triumph over mere birthright. The king's half-brother, survivors of previous succession, struggles watch these emerging rivalries with calculating eyes. They remember when their own ambitions were thwarted by circumstance and violence. Now they see opportunity in their nephew's competition. Most dangerous of all is the subtle transformation occurring within Mpand himself. Age and success have made him comfortable, perhaps careless. The vigilance that once protected him from internal threats has relaxed under the assumption that family loyalty provides absolute security. The king trusts his blood. His blood no longer trusts him to make the right choices about the kingdom's future. The first visible crack in royal unity appears during a seemingly routine council meeting. Prince Sesueo advocates for aggressive action against neighboring tribes who have raided Zulu territory. Prince Buyazi suggests diplomatic solutions that preserve Zulu strength for more serious threats. Their public disagreement forces the entire royal family to choose sides. What begins as a policy dispute evolves into something far more dangerous, a test of loyalties that reveals how deeply the family has divided. Queen Nkombazi begins hosting private gatherings where she speaks of her concerns about the kingdom's future direction, never directly criticizing the king's decisions, but questioning whether the current succession arrangements truly serve the people's interests. Her words carry special weight. She speaks as both a mother protecting her son and a royal wife protecting the dynasty. The king's half-brothers find themselves receiving conflicting requests from the competing princes. Uncle Somofunga supports Sesueo's military approach. Uncle Mpande single quotes S-brother whose name is lost to history, quietly backs Moyazi's diplomatic strategy. Family meals become exercises in careful neutrality that fool no one. But the most dangerous development occurs in the military. Young warriors begin identifying more strongly with their immediate commanders, the princes, than with the distant king. Regiment loyalty starts shifting from royal service toward personal allegiance to specific heirs. The breaking point comes when drought threatens the kingdom's stability. As crops fail and cattle die, the princes offer dramatically different solutions. Their public competition for credit in solving the crisis forces every royal relative to declare allegiance. What emerges is not one royal family but two competing courts within the same palace. The blood that once united now divides, and division in royal houses historically ends in only one way: violence. December 2, 1856, the Battle of Ndandakusaka. The day when family disagreement exploded into fraternal warfare that would define the dynasty's tragic fate. The confrontation has been building for months. King Mpand, grown old and weary, can no longer contain the ambitions of his sons or the machinations of relatives who see opportunity in royal division. Prince Sesueo leads his supporters toward his brother's stronghold, convinced that only decisive action can resolve the succession crisis. Behind him march regiments loyal to the heir apparent, men who believe they fight for legitimate royal authority and Zulu tradition. But Prince Buyazi has assembled his own formidable force. Chiefs who prefer his diplomatic approach, warriors who see opportunity in backing the younger brother. Even some of the king's own half-brothers who calculate that change might benefit their own positions. The battle erupts with devastating intensity. This is not warfare against foreign enemies. This is brother fighting brother, uncle fighting nephew, cousin fighting cousin. The royal blood that once symbolized unity now flows in the dust of civil conflict. King Mpand watches from his royal kraal as his family tears itself apart. The king, who trusted blood above all other bonds, witnesses that blood being spilled by the very hands that share it. His greatest fear, the destruction of his dynasty, unfolds before his eyes, orchestrated by those he loved most. Prince Muyazi falls, pierced by spears wielded by men who share his royal genetics. His supporters scatter or surrender. The succession crisis resolves itself through the oldest method. Violence determines legitimacy, but the victory tastes like poison. Treachery may have won the right of succession, but at a cost that will haunt the dynasty forever. The blood that was meant to preserve the throne has instead stained it permanently. The aftermath of Nanda Kusika reveals the true cost of royal fratricide. Prince Sephiro stands victorious, but he inherits a kingdom fractured by the very methods he used to claim it. The royal family that once presented a united front to the world now bears visible scars of internal warfare. Surviving relatives submit to the new heir apparent, but their loyalty carries the bitter taste of forced acceptance rather than genuine devotion. King Impand, witnessing his dynasty's near destruction, withdraws from active governance. The old king who once ruled through family consensus now speaks in whispers and shadows. His royal authority passes to a son whose legitimacy bears the permanent stain of fraternal blood. The military that once moved as one unified force splinters along lines drawn during this civil conflict. Regiments that fought against each other at Nanda Kusika maintain their suspicions in peacetime. Officers question orders. Warriors wonder if their next battle will be against foreign enemies or royal relatives. Most devastating of all is the psychological impact on the kingdom's subjects. The Zulu nation had prided itself on royal stability under Impand's long reign. Now they witness the truth that royal blood provides no guarantee against royal violence. Chiefs who had negotiated agreements with Prince Muyazi find their treaties worthless. Trade partnerships dissolve. Military alliances collapse. The kingdom that seemed unshakable begins, showing signs of the instability that will eventually make it vulnerable to colonial conquest. The dynasty survives Nanda Kusika, but its innocence dies in the dust of that battlefield. The royal blood that was meant to strengthen the throne has instead proven that even the strongest family bonds dissolve under the corrosive influence of absolute power. History struggles to judge the civil war that destroyed Impand's family unity, caught between competing narratives of necessary action and unforgivable betrayal. The case for inevitable conflict appears compelling when examined through the lens of dynastic politics. Royal succession in traditional African kingdoms rarely proceeded peacefully when multiple claimants possessed legitimate rights and real power bases. Perhaps the Battle of Nanda Kusika simply resolved through violence what negotiation could never settle definitively. Prince Isueo's supporters argue that decisive action preserved the kingdom from prolonged instability. A weak succession would have invited external intervention or colonial exploitation. The civil war, however tragic, established clear authority when the kingdom most needed unified leadership. The broader family's involvement might be seen as patriotic rather than treacherous. Each relative faced impossible choices between competing nephews, both legitimate heirs with valid claims to succession. Their participation in the conflict could represent attempts to influence its outcome rather than destroy the dynasty. But the evidence for family betrayal cuts just as deep. The civil war that tore apart Impand's family violated traditional values that placed kinship above personal ambition. Brothers fighting brothers, uncles choosing sides against nephews. These actions shattered social bonds that held Zulu society together. Most damning is the recognition that alternative solutions existed. Impand could have designated a clear successor earlier in his reign. The family could have negotiated power-sharing arrangements. Peaceful resolution was possible if royal relatives had prioritized dynasty survival over personal advancement. The consequences speak to the betrayal's magnitude. The kingdom that emerged from Nanda Kusika, weakened by internal conflict, fell to British forces within 2 decades. The royal blood spilled in civil war left the dynasty vulnerable to colonial conquest. The tragedy of Impand's family teaches us that blood can be both the strongest bond and the sharpest weapon in the arsenal of power. The king who trusted his relatives above all others learned that shared genetics provide no immunity against shared ambition. The dynasty that seemed most secure through family unity proved most vulnerable to family division. The blood that legitimized rule also legitimized rebellion. This pattern echoes throughout history, from ancient Rome to medieval Europe to modern political dynasties. When power becomes hereditary, it transforms family relationships into political calculations. Brothers become rivals. Sons become threats. Relatives become either allies or enemies, with little middle ground for simple kinship. Perhaps the most chilling lesson is that royal families often destroy themselves not through evil intentions, but through competing definitions of loyalty. Each participant in the Ndandakusika conflict believed they served the dynasty's interests. Each relative chose sides based on their vision of the kingdom's future. Yet their collective actions nearly destroyed what they individually sought to preserve. The modern world offers countless examples of similar dynamics, political families torn apart by competing ambitions. Business dynasties fractured by succession disputes. Even ordinary families where inheritance transforms love into litigation. Mpan's story forces us to confront uncomfortable questions. Does shared blood create special obligations or special temptations? Can family loyalty survive the corrupting influence of power? When does protecting a dynasty require betraying its current leader? Share your thoughts below. Was the destruction of Mpan's family inevitable, or could wisdom and restraint have preserved royal unity? Have you witnessed similar dynamics in families you know? If this story of blood transformed into betrayal has captured your imagination, subscribe for more tales from Africa's hidden history. Because the greatest threats to power rarely come from obvious enemies. They emerge from the dinner table, wearing familiar faces and sharing familiar names. Remember, the hands that lift you to the throne are often the same hands that drag you to the grave. Blood may be thicker than water, but it flows just as easily when spilled. Watch your family, they're watching your crown.